radar unit has to have been tested within a reasonable period of time,
Yeah.
either before the ticket or after the ticket. And, you know, the after the ticket sort of bothers me, because how do you know it was working on the day the ticket
That's
was
right.
given? But that's what the law says. And that the person who's running the radar unit has been trained
Yep.
in how to run that and is
And certified.
to operate that. That's where you can really make some headway as a layperson, a motorist who's charged with a ticket, if they don't meet all those steps.
That would mean that those police officers would have to calibrate that thing or check that
That's what
every
they're
single
supposed to
day.
do.
Yeah, but they don't in Rhode Island. And it doesn't say that, it just says within a reasonable period of time. Now, there's an interesting case on,
But as a general matter, they do.
yeah, they say they do.
test them, yeah.
Clocking. You know, where the
Yeah.
police officer drives behind you and he pulls you over and says, I clocked you at 60 miles an hour or whatever. He has to come in and prove that the speedometer in his car has been calibrated or checked. Doesn't have to be necessarily, same thing, within a reasonable period of time, but it's sufficient, for instance, if they run the police car up against another car with a speedometer, and that other speedometer doesn't have to be checked, but if they're reading the same thing, the Supreme Court says that's sufficient.
Pardon me for playing devil's advocate here, but if I wanted to challenge an officer saying, what would keep him from saying, absolutely it was checked, ma'am, it was checked? I would have no recourse of knowing how that was done, if that was done. How would the normal layperson who was just trying to get off for the ticket and the future hit on his insurance, what recourse does a general public person have in that case?
Well,
how would you know?
My police officers in East Greenwich only tell the truth. So.
Yes.
Now, what you could do.
And they can appeal it if we find them guilty.
Well, but the
Yeah.
real answer
Yeah.
is there should be some documentation.
Yes.
And perhaps before trial, if they're good lawyers and motorists, they would do a request for production saying, give me the documentation that shows that it's been tested.
Exactly. Yeah, and you're training and you're certified. Yeah.
My goodness. Okay. Other issues about, one other thing about your municipal court duties. As you're bound and beholden to the letter of the law, does my good intentions and my otherwise good behavior factor in at all in your judgments?
I will tell you this, a lot of times during trials, the police officers do make mention as to whether or not somebody had a poor or a good attitude.
Right.
Does it cloud my decision?
No.
Not really.
No.
No, if they haven't
Black and
proven,
white.
well, if the town hasn't proven its case, they haven't proven its case. I have to
Right.
comply by case law or the
Follow
state
the
statutes,
rules, the
follow the
evidence.
rules, the evidence.
Right.
And if they haven't proven it, they haven't proven it.
Now, you asked a slightly different question other than attitude. What was it again?
My intention,
What you intended.
Yes.
For example, I intended to stop at that stop sign, and
Oh,
I
okay.
just got distracted and didn't do it.
Yeah.
This is not a specific intent crime. The town doesn't
This is
have to
black and-
prove, it's either you did it or you didn't.
I did have one
So-
person who said to me, I did go through, I was in the it was a red light violation. I was in the intersection, I was waiting to turn, because I waited so long, the light did turn red, however, I could not just stay in the middle of the road. I had a child in the car, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes we basically
Right.
have to use our judgment.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
That's
Every
we're not
judge-
mean people.
Every judge
Yeah.
will use their judgment
Yeah.
to some degree or another based on the evidence that comes in.
Yeah.
And there are, we say it's black and white, but there are
Gray.
areas of gray where you have to say, wait a minute, that doesn't sit well with me.
Well, in the black and white camp of those violations, the headlight was out. Black and white, it either was or it wasn't. The person didn't have the rear view mirror attached properly or something. Knowing that the cities and towns are looking for revenue enhancement, isn't it likely that more of those kinds of things people need to be aware of? Because it's true, you are supposed to have that rear view mirror. Am I even supposed to bother checking or doing
Well-
anything
Answer.
about
We're
that?
not revenue enhancement
We're not
officers.
revenue
Oh,
enhancement
yes,
officers.
I know you
You know how
are.
that came from.
Yeah, Frank Caprio.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he's right. That's
Yeah.
not what we do.
That's not what we.
However,
Exactly.
did you get it
For
fixed?
the little people.
Did you get it fixed?
Right after I
Right
got
after.
arrested
That's
or
like
stopped.
driving with
Expired registration.
The first thing I
Over.
asked them, did you register it? Show the prosecutor that you registered it. Yes,
Yep.
Your Honor, it was the very next day. In that case, what I will do is I will dismiss the ticket, but they do have to pay a court
course.
cost.
Corrective action.
Yes.
Okay.
If someone takes corrective action, they're operating in good faith, we'll give them a break.
See, we are looking here for some practical solutions, and you are providing them. So there's good and bad in all of this, but you are providing
It's
some very...
mostly good.
Yes, that's right. It's mostly good, and we're giving you all a chance to supply that information. Other issues about traffic court. What was this? Appealing. No. Oh, the traffic tribunal. That was the other thing that we were discussing. Traffic courts and traffic tribunals. What's the difference, and how does one either graduate or how does one determine
We
where
are
you're
municipal
going?
courts.
Right.
The traffic tribunal, I suppose you could call it
Is
the
a state,
traffic
yeah,
court. It's a
for the state.
For the state. Ours is, although we're sanctioned by the state, but our duties are to basically impose...
What happened in our towns?
What happened in our
You know,
town,
the
yeah.
speeding violations that happen
Yeah.
in our town, up to 10
10
miles an hour.
yeah.
We hear. If it's over 10 miles an hour, it goes to the traffic tribunal.
And when it comes to municipal court, I may not want a lawyer, but if I'm in traffic tribunal, does that automatically mean I need a lawyer?
Absolutely not.
No, okay.
Absolutely not, no.
And we do have lawyers who come to municipal court.
we do.
It depends on what the person's circumstances and situation
Okay.
is. If we have a younger person who can't use the good driving record because they haven't been driving 3 years, we'll often work with them and give them community service or some other kind of, I don't want to say break, but some other kind of sentence, alternative sentencing, other than just imposing the fine, because we want them to learn from this
You're
situation.
part of the good driving statute. You do have to be driving for 3 years.
Sounds right. Other municipal issues that you'd like to address? I know that we talked about when you have done something in traffic court and someone wants to appeal it, there's a process that goes on from appealing something in municipal court. How does that process take place?
If we find someone guilty in traffic court, David said earlier, we do have to let them know what their right to appeal is, so they have a right to appeal our ruling within 10 days. And that goes directly to the traffic tribunal. There's a fee of $25 that has to be paid, and they have to get a copy of the transcript, which is the record or the tape that was made as part of that hearing.
And if it's a town ordinance violation
Yeah.
or a zoning ordinance violation, there are appeal rights for those too, but they're not the same. And depending on what ordinance is being violated or zoning law, it may be to district court or superior court.
One other question relative to this, and I think before we have to wrap up here. Expunging a record that you've, in your court. I understand that if something's happened in your court, you're the court that I go to have the record expunged. Expunged, define it, please.
We don't have that jurisdiction to expunge a record.
Well, it depends what she's talking about.
Okay.
If you're talking about, we've instituted a charge and you've been found guilty of something, that's done, a traffic charge by the traffic tribunal and the state law. It says it has to stay on your record for 3 years or 5 years, depending on what the violation
But now I
is.
want it expunged. Do I go back to you, or do I have to go to the AG's office and then back to you, or what happens?
Why
as
would
we
you,
wrap
why
up.
would you be entitled to having it expunged? There has to
I'm
be
not sure, because I want it, and
It's
I know
often
that there are
3
enough
years.
people
Yeah,
who
the-
have interest in that.
Traffic violation cannot be expunged,
cannot.
except by the rules of the, that's been laid out by the legislature.
I think we have lots more to talk about with this, because several questions did come up about what's expunged, what that process is. So I hope that you'll all stay tuned as we address those and other legal matters. Thank you for tuning in. Jackie Grasso, David Bazar, thank you once again for tuning in and for your input with these matters. Municipal courts, traffic court, and I think we have lots more to cover with that, and we should probably do that next time.
Okay.